What's up, Craig?
What's up, Peter?
All right, buddy.
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, you're always excited to talk to me.
That's true.
What would you
But
not
this
be?
is the type of thing I could literally have a conversation with you and not record it. But I figured it's probably better to record this one.
Is this going to be another rant, or do we have something special to talk about?
No, we have something special to talk about, but there's a variety of topics, so we'll see how they flow together.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to talk to you about is I was talking to a friend of mine, and she practices in an area that she doesn't want to live in. She's in the Northeast. She's wants a change. She wants to move to another state. She wants to leave, New York City. And she said, I said, well, what are you waiting on? She goes, well, New York got really beat up with COVID, and it's going to take a little time for me to get my profit back up, and then I want to sell. So she's convicted. She absolutely wants to leave, but she said, I'm just, going to work a little harder and get everything back to where it was and then flip the switch and sell it. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, well, if we are in agreement here, because what I believe is that you could run your plan perfectly and drive, 30, 40, 50% net profit to your bottom line in a year or two, or whatever the time frame is, maybe even 6-8 months. I feel pretty confident that we're going to be in a recession with the rising interest rates, maybe not a recession, but definitely in a period of lower valuation. So what I was telling her is like, well, you could get your profit 30, 40% up more, but valuations are bananas right now. And maybe in a year they'd be less. And if you ran your plan and executed your plan perfectly and dropped that profit, but wound up getting 3 or 4 times less turns on your business, you'd actually make less money. So I wanted to just hear your thoughts about that.
Well, I am a pseudo economist.
Yeah, that's why I like to talk to you about this stuff.
Yeah. So you are right in your hypothesis, I think, to a certain degree. But let me put a caveat in that. There is money that private equity has. If let's say she was selling to private equity, there is money that they have pledged at a certain interest rate. So for a short period of time, probably the next 6 to 12 months, where they get the interest rate that they agreed to on their credit line.
Yeah, they're locked for
right?
That amount of money.
The 30-year mortgage just crossed 6% interest yesterday. For the first time, Greg, in a long time, we have had. So economists speculated that we would have in Q1 of the GDP, we would have 1.1% growth. Okay, obviously 1.4% growth. We actually, when push came to shove, they just released this week or early or late last week. It was negative 1.4. So they were wrong. So a recession by definition is 2 quarters of negative contraction of a GDP. Okay, so we've got 2
consecutive quarters.
2 consecutive quarters, but they were wrong by their speculation by 240 basis points.
Yeah.
Okay, so the swing was 240 basis points. They were wrong. So we have been on this kind of Red Bull high with the money printing that happened and COVID that happened. So valuations were going crazy. You can see that in technology. So the government just kept printing money. Well, guess what? So that was called quantitative easing, right?
Yeah.
Right, where you give money to the economy and everything starts rolling. So when you can borrow money at 0%, which is a lot of what people were being able to do at the top, valuations are bananas. For instance, in like software and tech, it's 8 times top line revenue.
Yeah,
not EBITDA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not your profit.
So this printing led to 30 to 50% higher valuations than typically there would have been in a market correction. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for your crystal ball, because you're going deep into things that you're going to lose me on. What's your crystal ball tell you in 12 months from now? Are valuations similar, slightly less, or far less for dentistry?
Well,
in 12 months
I don't have a crystal ball, but
just try to give me your best answer, because this is going to be. You always said, we record all this, so we'll bring this
history
up
proves someone correct.
Yeah, you always say that.
Well, where I was going with that was that so we've had quantitative easing, right, out of COVID and things like this, where the government was giving people money and it was giving businesses money and it was helping. Well, guess what, Craig? They want that money back, so they've been doing quantitative tightening now. As you know, they've been announcing interest rates will be rising. So the Fed is going to be announcing another probably 50 basis points on top of what we have now. So we're going to be in probably 6.5% interest on 30-year money in the next 30 to 45 days.
And by the way, you're not even just talking about the printing of the money. What about the money that's just being written, these checks? I mean, the Biden administration wants to pledge $33 billion of weapons.
Dude, that's a rounding error from the numbers we're talking about, though.
Well, I mean, just as a placeholder, we spend $15 billion per year on our own national security.
So you asked the question, me speculate on where valuations will be. Mm-hmm. I think this year they will remain relatively the same.
Interesting. For the whole year.
Yep.
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay. I think maybe slightly down. I think 2023 will be in a full-blown recession.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think there's a lag indication, right? So sometimes these waves take a while to manifest, especially into America. So first it hits things like this hit big metropolitan areas, New York, California, Miami. They hit big cities first. The wave hits there first. And then
why is that? Why do you say that?
It just happens. Honestly, like I can remember back in 2008 and 2009, like rural communities didn't really know it had hit yet, right? Because it just they weren't as leveraged, and there wasn't these financial capitals, so the reverberations didn't go inland yet. But eventually things bad news trickles downhill, and it just takes a while to hit kind of middle America, if you will. So I believe at scale, everybody will be affected probably in the next 8 months. But I don't think it's going to be a doom and gloom, Craig. It's not going to be like 2009 where we
like the mortgage-backed crisis.
Yeah, and all that stuff. I mean, so much of our economy is based on real estate and healthcare and things like that. So the mortgage, that was just such a complete shit show that it just there was no way to avoid that crisis. I don't think it's going to be that way. I think it's been priced in, as a matter of fact, because we've been expecting it so long that I think we're going to insulate somewhat from it. But it's going to be hard to borrow money. I mean, the days of kind of free money are over for a while because the Fed needs that money back.
Yeah, we need to contract it. The Fed is going to try to keep those rates up so that we can cool the economy off slightly. But the delicate balance is trying to cool it without sending us into a full-blown recession. But
so back to your original question, though, Greg, with how you started the pod about your friend, I don't think you're wrong. So you could. All right. So let me put it this way. So the rule is essentially in business, for every 1% increase in interest rates, your valuation is going to go down 15 to 20%.
Wow.
Okay. So for every 100 basis points, the interest rate rises, you need to increase your top line revenue to stay at the same valuation 20%.
Okay. So for every point that every additional percentage point that it takes to borrow X dollars, your business needs to increase by what percentage to stay the same value? I want to hear
15 to 20%.
Okay, so let's just call it 20%.
Okay.
So rates have gone up by 2%. Easy.
Yep.
Institutional money. So this person would have to increase their business right now by 40% to get the same amount of money as she would have gotten.
Next year she will. Yes, I think this will. No, I think this will manifest. Yeah. Okay. So remember, I started it with a caveat, though. But I started with a caveat about that tranche of money. I started with that caveat that private equity and
some have done that, but there's others that were actually going for funding as we speak.
Okay. Well, they are probably out of the mix now.
Right. So when you have less people competing for the same asset, prices tend to go down, supply and demand as well.
Yes.
So this person's idea of a 1-year plan to fix their profit and then sell could wind up netting her less money.
Absolutely. And here's the other kicker with that, Craig. If they're not at a scale where EBITDA matters, meaning if you're a practice that's doing $1.15 million or less,
or a single doctor, if you're
a single doctor, like it's still going to be a traditional valuation, and because dentistry has that, so they're going to say, "Hey, doc, we'll give you 80%, we'll give you 85%, we'll give you 90%." So her profitability, quote unquote, doesn't matter as much. Now, there's other DSOs that'll give you attribution for an EBITDA thing if that's what you're focused on, but that's for usually they don't mess around with that kind of thing. Right. It's not worth the time. Let's just be
And
honest.
also, let's talk about the idea that they're going to give you X percentage of your money up front.
Let me clarify. Not worth their time. Hold on. Let me put a pin in that, because that people could be offended by that. Where I'm going with that is the game. Their game is to roll up. That's the term. Roll up EBITDA as fast as possible and hot potato it to the next person almost. So it almost takes as much work for them to roll up $200,000 of EBITDA as it does $2 million of EBITDA. And if they're borrowing on leveraged money, right? If their money is borrowed, so then it's a game of how fast can I do this before the funds dry up? So I don't want to say that it's not, quote unquote, if you're listening to this and you're saying, screw you, Boulden, you just said it's not worth it. What I'm saying is that in the game of roll-ups, the game is to find unicorn practices that you can acquire that have large amounts of profitability from an EBITDA perspective, because the big boys play that game of EBITDA, not what's your top line. No one talks about top line. Matter of fact, no one gives a shit about top line in business.
Yeah, well, we did in the beginning. That's all we used to talk
Well,
about.
I'm saying in business, agnostic
no,
business,
I know,
no one cares.
I know.
In my YPO, in my forums and all the stuff, in my business stuff I talk about, no one talks about what's your top line revenue, because everyone knows it's a farce.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's actually the most upsetting thing when I've had times in my past where my top line was massive and my bottom line was so small that I would have rather had my business shrank by half and make more money. Because listen, 5% of your business is going to drive you crazy. 5% of your procedures are going to be failures. 5% of things are going to go wrong. 5% of your employees are going to drive you crazy. So if you have a large business, that 5% can become a lot bigger. 5%.
So are you happy with the advice you gave her?
Yeah, I am. I just wanted to run it by you. Because then there's the idea that, okay, you don't get all your money up front. People think you sell and you walk. They'll hold back, especially if you're producing your own practice. They don't, hey, I'm selling and I'm moving to Texas. When?
You can do that. You can have that.
You'll have less valuation.
You will absolutely have a turn or two less.
Okay.
Right.
So the point I was just trying to make when I gave you that advice is that if you're thinking, I would say holistically, and I know there's nuances to everybody's situation. If you're thinking about selling, I would probably do it now versus a year from now.
Yes. And when you always say you can't time the market, right? You really can't.
We know
time the market
coming,
with coming into buying stocks and things like that. It's not wise, but you can and should time the market with exits.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not sitting here saying selling is a good idea. It's just that if that's something on your mind and you had a 1-year target, or you thought you're going to fix something over the next year, then I would strongly consider it. And I want to add to, when you sell your own business, you have to enter into another business. It's just not your own. So if you get a pile of money, you'll have to go invest.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to get funds then those funds need to get yield, just like they did in your dental practice, right?
And a lot changes for you too, psychologically. When you're a dentist and you have a business, or you're working as a dentist and you don't own your own business, you have cash flow. And there's nothing like having cash flow, repeating revenue that's coming in the door. When you get money, even if it's a lot of money, I've had friends that sold for, big money, not just, not dentists, but business people as well. And it's a funny thing that happens to them, because even if it's a lot of money, they go into capital preservation mode, and they're not as likely to spend, because every time
it's a retirement mentality, right? It's like, oh shit, this is it.
This is all I got. Even though it could be like 8 million or 10 million or something ridiculous, or 20 million. Every time you pull money from it, you're like, okay, now I can earn less. Or when the stock, let's say you're in stocks, all of a sudden you look one day at your portfolio and your 5 million went to 4. It's very scary. You can't readily know exactly what your dental practice is worth at any given moment. But if you're in stocks and bonds, you can actually flick your phone, turn your phone on and find out, shit, I lost $1 million today.
Right.
We may lose $1 million in our practices, but just never know it, because it's not marked to market.
But guess what? At least you're in control of that to a certain degree, meaning you can turn on marketing, you can grow your ecosystems, you can add this, you can buy real estate. There's things you can do. Stock market, you have zero control over.
Yeah.
Zero.
You're in someone else's business.
And
you're going to be the last person to know. You're going to be
in a lot of macroeconomic climates, war, COVIDs, money printing, all the thing, COVIDs. Look at me.
Yeah, and it's fun. And it's funny, by the way.
Yes, it is COVIDs technically. There's
COVID. Yeah, there's multiple
variants of COVID.
Yeah, there are variants. So I always tell, let's take your partners, for example, at ADS.
Yeah.
What they know about your business, if it was a publicly traded company that decided to buy into the company, would be illegal. They can walk around ADS and be like, oh, we're opening up a location over here. Oh, Johns Creek. Look at Johns Creek. It's going to be amazing. Oh, we're hiring that doctor. What I'm trying to say is that in privately held businesses, you have information that's not available. In publicly held companies, you have no access to that information. So what I'm saying,
my partners are on the board, therefore they know the next moves. Meaning,
right? They know everything. They have
the board of
insider
the board of
trading.
directors. Yeah.
They can walk around the practice, be like, oh, look at Dr. Jones, he's kicking butt. Oh my God, look at Johns Creek.
I didn't know we got all these scanners. Oh,
what's going on? What was that? Brookhaven.
Well, they would know about all the scanners. But you're right. It's inside baseball when you're inside when you have the inside.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. With your own business, there's inside baseball. You have insider information.
Look, it's proven time and time again. There is no better investment when run correctly as an operator. There's no better business from a tax advantage situation, from you being in control of your money than your own business. 100%. That's why we talk in the mastermind, Greg. It's like we're talking about discretionary money and things like this. I said, look, if you've maxed out your practice to where it wants to be, or you've allocated funds for, or you want it to be later, great. Now's a place to deploy discretionarily into the real estate or the market or whatever it may be. Even some speculative investments, right? Or alternative investments like, some moonshots. Private equity. That's fine. But you want to allocate the funds where they're going to work the hardest, right? I look at all of my dollar bills that I get and I say, you're going to work hard, little guy. You're going to work hard. Now
Peter Malik says every day your dollars wake up, put a shovel on their back and go to work.
Yeah. I look at it and say, now go out there and come back with a friend. Come back with a friend.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to talk about that because we talked about selling, and I just want to make sure people don't hear as like the sky is falling and sell now. Because if you love your business,
it did kind of sound like that. You did kind
of
put it out.
No, this person has to sell because they cannot stand living where they're living. So they have
that's a different scenario,
an untenable situation.
And guess what? That desperation is going to come across at the table, and she's going to get crushed.
Yeah, I hope not, but yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably the same reason why she wants to leave New York is probably the same reason why many DSOs may not want to practice there.
I was just about to say, right? Like, you think that's not a pervasive thing that's going on? You think she's the outlier in wanting to leave a scenario where there's societal, like, I don't want to be here anymore, right?
Yeah.
But and like, it's a funny thing that I remember one of my mentors said something. He said, look, when bad shit happens, people run and they drop things. The smart people go back and pick them up, right? Or are there to pick them up at discount, right? And usually the people who pick them up are these shrewd business people who can see,
of course.
But us, we dentists, we just throw our hands up and like, screw this, I'm selling, I'm out of here, right? Yeah. And you just get your ass handed to you.
Yeah, listen, Black Friday, when TVs are on sale, people sleep out overnight to buy a reduced sale price. But when assets are on sale, everybody freaking like flips out. You know, asset that's on sale, they know Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett's bought more stock in like the first quarter of this year than I think he's bought. I mean, he's on a record tear of buying companies right now.
I'm not a fan of him, but he does have a good quote, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
But I don't really love Warren Buffett. I think he's a dinosaur, and I think he's a smart dinosaur, but he's done well. He missed a lot of things.
I know you don't like him, by the way. He just he hates Bitcoin, by the way.
He hates it.
He says, he said the other day, he's like, if you could sell me 1% of the United States farmland, I will cut you a check for $50 billion right now. But if you actually give me 1% or all the Bitcoin, I would have paid $25 for. He hates it.
But he was around in the dawn of electricity. So like, who gives a shit? He doesn't understand. He'll tell you that he didn't understand Amazon.
Peter,
he passed
the good
on that.
news is history will prove one of us correct.
His history is coming to a close pretty soon.
What do you mean history's coming to a close?
He's not going to be around too much longer. I mean, what's he going to live to 119?
Well, no, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm just talking about you and me. Like,
watch this. He'll probably outlive me.
God forbid. So talk to me about student loans, by the way. Everybody's talking to me about like, hey, don't worry. We don't have to pay our student loans anymore. All going to be forgiven. Like, talk to me about that.
So
dental student debt is gone now.
No. Biden is trying to throw through an executive order of 10,000, the first $10,000 of your loans to be forgiven. He's trying to do it on an executive order, but like you and I discussed yesterday, it's actually impossible to do. There's an act of 1965. I don't remember the exact bill, but it prohibits a president from relieving student loans as an executive order. So I think he's kind of pandering a little bit.
It was a promise during the election.
So yeah, it was a promise, and he's saying, it's going to be like, I tried. It's interesting the timing of which you're trying to do it. I think they're looking at November to try and buy votes, essentially, right? This is definitely something to put him back in the good graces of the voting population, because there is not arguably the lowest approval rating of any president, sitting president right now. I think the tides are changing, and I think everyone sees the blood in the water. That being said, so this would be, if this does pass, hypothetically, Craig, I'm not sure it's going to apply to dentistry.
Yeah, we're too rich, huh? It's like,
I don't think it applies to graduate, and I think it's more of an undergraduate, and I think there's probably some limitations on income.
So all those worthless degrees that I've told people, like, don't get a doctorate in like British or French painting or literature. We're paying for that now, is what you're telling me? Like the wastebasket degrees.
Yeah.
A PhD in Roman history.
Yeah. But here's the thing. God, there's so much to unpack here. All this is, Greg, this is a stimulus. It's just wrapped in a prettier bow. Right. So if it does pass, which I don't think it will, because Congress actually has to vote this in. If it does pass, then it is going to be it will stimulate the economy, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that will be the thing that tapers some of this quote unquote contraction of GDP. It will accelerate, actually. It will take us out of that contraction of GDP, because it is responsible. Student loan is actually equal to about, I think, 3% of the GDP, believe it or not, 2 or 3%, meaning that we have, I forget the aggregate amount of I think it's $1.3 trillion of outstanding student loans. The bill on the table would relieve a lot of this. I think 500 billion of it. So it adds the biggest stimulus. If you can remember, just to put this stuff in context, we lose some perspective, because now we're in the trillions, and this economic, the COVID thing and all the things that happened in the past 2 years was a $10 trillion stimulus. If you can remember, and I know you can, back in 2009, when Obama was putting through the stimulus of 2008, 2009, and remember how $600 billion was the stimulus package. Craig, in totality, meaning that was enough money to bail out GM and help out Delta and do all the things. In totality, it was $600 billion. Now we're like, hey, let's just do this one. Let's just do this one. Let's just do this one.
The spending's out of control.
Out of control. Right.
I mean, and two, we've talked about this before, Peter, but there's going to be an inflection point where the schooling is just not worth it, even for specific schooling like dental school. Like we talked about this in another podcast. There should be like a truth in lending disclosure when you're signing your student loans. When you buy a house. Let me just tell you this. When you buy a house, you buy a $300,000 house and you sign up on a 5% mortgage, 30-year fixed. It says your true cost of the house is going to be blank. So imagine if at dental school, they were required to say, okay, your total education is approximately this. And research shows that you're probably likely to make this, or the average that you'll make is this. You would never do it.
It's never mind. It can't be truth in lending. I hear what you're saying on this. The problem is that the problem stems from the government. Let me tell you why. The government said, hey, if you want to go to school, we will give you as much money as you need. So you're giving 18 to 21-year-olds pretty much limited money. The cost of education has ramped up threefold, tenfold of inflation, meaning that in 1970, the cost of a private school year of school was $25,000. Today, it's like $55,000, right? So there has become, anywhere there's a bucket of allocation, the government saying, hey, here's a bucket of funds, people are going to step in and privatize the education. Things are going to rise. No, it's not going to be great. Meaning that they made a business out of the allocation of funds.
Oh, no. I was talking about well, yeah, when they privatize it and still use government money, that's not, I'm talking about completely be independent of government subsidy.
No, because those funds are still approved, meaning that that people can still get loans. They're like, okay, $55,000 a year seems like a good idea. It's cost me nothing because the government's taking the loan, and all of a sudden it becomes a business to raise tuition, is what I'm saying. There is money in taking advantage of these tranches of money. So anywhere the government provides a tranche of money, people step in and take advantage of it. So the rise of these private schools, these bubbles, has been incredible. The rise of tuition has been incredible because there's no end in what the government won't allow you to get a loan for, quote unquote, education.
Yeah.
But to your point, now you get out and you are literally in indentured servitude because you have no means to ever get out of it, and your interest rates are you basically can only stay afloat. And if you can,
and they're not deductible, right? Like the interest on student loans is
to a certain degree,
but, but educational costs for families is not like there's some like lack of deductibility in taxes for this. Like
to a certain degree, you get you start earning out. Let's just call it back in dentistry because this is a dental pod. You start earning out of some of your deductions as you make more.
Yeah, your standardized deductions.
Yeah. So anyway, I
just don't know what changes, but I do believe that there's a point in our future where it just does not make economic sense. And I hate
people are going to see that, look, everything has been demonetized. Everything has been democratized. There's digitization of everything. You look at Peter Diamandis and his 6 Ds, right? He talks about things. I think
look at specialty programs. Like imagine
let me just finish that one real quick, just as I can. So it used to be that like there was a walled garden to education, meaning you had to be able to pay your way to get into that garden to then learn from the people in the ivory tower, so to speak. Now education is free everywhere. Quality education. So it's not that there's not the means to be able to educate yourself. So if the true thesis of college and higher education is learning, well, you could technically do that for free on YouTube or paid courses.
It's a paywall is the true thesis
or the Khan Academy. That's exactly what I'm saying.
It's a paywall.
So people are going to wake up and say, and look, this shift is going to take a lot of time. I mean, the legacy system that we built, it takes a while for people to be like, wait a second, this was not built in my favor potentially.
I wonder if specialty applications are declining, like prosto residencies, stuff like that. I mean, like,
I doubt it.
You doubt it, huh?
Yeah, I doubt it.
Interesting. I would think it would, because there's a lot of, there's education that's available, postgraduate level education that's available to GPs. And I see more the rise of the super GP. Like, when I graduated 100 years ago, it wasn't normal.
Well, you're taking a hard tangent, and I do agree with you, because I think there's going to be a normalization of what specialists are paid versus GPs are paid.
Well, that's happening already.
That's what I'm saying. So when that happens, right, it doesn't make sense to quote unquote specialize, because you're not guaranteed the higher money if corporate America is now controlling a lot of dentistry, right?
Yeah,
they're going to be the
controlling the jobs, and they made it the same percentage between GP and specialty. People.
So you are right in that degree, right? That maybe the carrot might be starting to be removed. If the carrot was like, you will make twice as much as a generalist, just go to this extra 2 years of school, right? If now no longer that is the case, then you are right. Maybe it's like, hey, not only am I going to have to pay, I'm going to miss out on 2 years of earning, and it's not going to make any sense to do so, to specialize. Who knows?
I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear your comments below. Please comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know, because Peter and I are further away from our graduation point, and some people may be still in schooling, and this is the conversation.
But this is going to be, this could be a paradigm shift, Craig. It's not going to be like an inflection point. I think it's going to be a shift over time. Just like I was thinking that education will be a shift over time. People will see less and less value from paying $50,000 a year for just undergraduate education. I don't mean just, but for undergraduate, because, typically the people who really want to do things, it's going to take an MBA or a PhD or higher education learning to do that. And that's when you start dental school or medical school or, chiropractic. That's when you start stacking on big money debt.
Yep.
coming in with $200,000 of student loans in your undergraduate and then stacking on another 300,000-400,000 into your professional is insanity.
It's crazy.
You better know how to, the fastest way that people ask me, like, what's the best way to get out of debt? I said, produce your ass off. Learn how to be a good businessman and produce your ass off. Make income. That's the only way out. It's the only way out, because no one's coming to save you on that one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's
what are your thoughts?
Let's wrap on, let's wrap.
No, I have one more. I have one more economic thing
all right,
to ask you.
Okay.
You think we're going to war?
Craig, I am not qualified on that. There's things that I'm pretty qualified to talk on. I think geopolitically charged things I am not. So I'm not even going to speculate on that.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, you obviously feel a certain way, and you know.
Yeah,
more about
I think we're amping up and escalating towards direct conflict with Russia. I think what's happening to the people of Ukraine is absolutely terrible. And I feel for what's going on there. It's a modern, sovereign, civilized nation, but I also think it's far from a democracy. Mm-hmm. And I believe that Putin is a maniac, and I believe that there's no talk for peace. And I think has to be room for peace, because there can't just be a binary equation of either we win or we lose. Mm-hmm. There's a happy medium, or not a happy medium, but a conciliatory medium that no one's talking about. And, I'm seeing our heads of state going to Ukraine saying things like, we will support you until the very end. I think we wind up losing a lot of lives in Ukraine, and possibly more. And I think we'll wind up, I just don't think war is the answer right now. And I see that happening. So when I'm talking about recession and stuff like that, I think a big part of what's going to wind up happening is a war, an extended, maybe not direct conflict with Russia, but a proxy war like we usually have, like the Afghani war and the Iraqi war and all these other things. I think a lot of people lose their lives.
Yeah, but even by trying to tiptoe around it and be a proxy, it involves you. It implicates you into that. So
well, people die, and that's
I know
for the world.
I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you, and I'm just I pray every day that there is resolution, because no one wins in a war. We all know that, and it just sucks.
Yeah. Well, it's not true that no one wins during a war, by the way, Peter. Unfortunately,
well,
politicians get richer. There's deals made. War is a very lucrative endeavor for institutional politicians, and that's what's scary. That people would actually, in the cry for support of people, we will arm them against the foe that's much stronger. That's the largest nuclear superpower, and we're sending them long-range missiles now, like $33 billion worth of long-range missiles, so they could potentially try to attack Russia from there. That doesn't end well. I wouldn't pick a fight, and it's just it bothers me.
Yeah. So, it goes back to kind of how we were talking about, the contraction of the economy. I think you look at the stock market, it's a sea of red. I think there's fear and uncertainty right now. Right. So, who knows? All we can do is pray that that innocent people aren't casualties of war,
Yeah, I know. That's my thought.
All right. Well, Greg, thanks for making me depressed for the rest of the day.
Well, I'm sorry to have to force you to stick your head in the sand and talk about it. I think it's
my head out of the sand.
I'm sorry.
My head out of the sand, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I said. Head out of the sand.
You said head in the sand.
No, I said out, but it's okay.
I just don't know enough about it, honestly.
I don't either. I just know enough to know that what we're being told is probably not 100% fact.
Right.
And we're being told en masse that this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to support them. There's always a nuance to it. There's always some degree. And why is there no third option for diplomatic discussion? I mean, recognize, I just worry about those people. I really do. And, that's a bear that I would not be poking. But anyway, leave your comments if you have an opinion on it. I'd love to read them. We read them all, and I'd love to hear what people have to think of.
Yeah, we do. We read a comment the other day, by the way, which I never read, and it was about the book, and it was funny. Actually, it wasn't funny because I laughed, and then I kept thinking about it all day long. So I was like, obviously, that guy got in my kitchen, but it was I think specifically
get an editor.
Yeah.
Right?
The topic was get an editor. Which is funny.
That's
So
awesome.
just so you know,
Oh,
to your
come
point,
on,
Craig,
dude.
we
I don't
do
even
read, we
care.
do read all this stuff, all the comments.
Yeah,
When
but
Craig
it's
says, "Hey,
okay.
put
But
put
some people
end
want to
in the,"
just dig at you.
no, I know that. I know that. But it is funny because you come off with it. You get so praised by like people being like, "Oh, you're making such impact." And then all it takes is one person to be like,
Oh, that's not true, Peter. That's not true, Peter. Not it doesn't.
you
No.
didn't let me finish. You didn't
Okay,
let
go
me
ahead.
finish.
All it takes
No,
is one person
to kind of humble you to the fact that you're like, well, maybe the narrative, maybe the messaging isn't there, right?
I don't let
Like,
that enter my
all right,
space. I mean, listen, if you live by people's praise, you die by their criticism. What you want when you want to stand out and do something for whatever reason, people are going to put arrows in your back. And that
totally.
just comes with the territory. I mean, human beings are tricky.
I
And
know, but our just like in our practices, Craig, we strive, like we want
yeah,
every patient to be happy, right? I
it's
want every
impossible.
dentist who follows us to kind of be like,
It's
gosh, what
impossible.
value? It's impossible. But
It's
guess
impossible.
what? If you get a bad review in your practice today, you're not going to be like, ha ha ha, that's just whatever.
No, no, no. I know,
You
but like
take it.
we're
You
talking about
take it
for
emotionally.
Bulletproof, what seminar gives a money back guarantee?
It wasn't talking about the seminar; it was a book,
No, I know, but I'm just saying our organization, what we stand for. If you
right?
didn't like what you did, I mean, we had a sponsor that we didn't like what they were doing, and we actually gave their check back to them.
Right.
I mean, so at the end of the day, you can't make everyone happy, and we're
But
not
you
trying
try.
to.
You try. All right. Well,
No, we're not even trying. The people that listen, there's people that want to stay stuck in their dirty diaper. What was that?
that was my
Oh, wow,
sad.
wow,
That
wow,
was my
wow.
sad trombone.
I like it. I wish I had that machine.
You don't have, you'd be so annoying.
I
You'd
would be
be,
so
you would,
annoying
you
with
would
that.
overuse it and
Yeah,
start
my train horn in my
giggling to
truck, by the way, I'm
yourself.
so annoying with that too.
Oh my God.
Anyway, we appreciate all the positive feedback. I get text messages all the time saying that we're doing a good thing, and that's what we're doing this. We're doing this to try to help the profession and not have everybody skin their knees like we had to skin our knees. So if you like what you're hearing, let us know or drop a review. We
and
really
there's
appreciate it.
5 regular price tickets left for the summit only, Craig. 30 days out. 5 regular. The last 50. So it's at 250 or 245. The last 50 go to the next tier.
So 5 discounted regular price tickets.
Yep. And I think
Got
the
it.
room blocks expired either today or yesterday. But
Don't delay.
don't delay.
Don't delay.
All right, buddy. Let's we'll see you next time.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. Thanks, Pete.